How do you turn life lessons into a book that is powerful and inspiring? Well, in this video, we're going to dive into the self-help and personal development genre to see how you do just that. How do you take your life experiences and create something that is helpful for your readers? Hi, I'm Charlotte Chipperfield. I am your book coach and developmental editor, and I help you write, edit, and publish books that inspire and create positive impact in this world. And there is one genre that works overtime in this area to really make sure that we are creating a better world and helping each individual become the best they can be. In this video, I'm going to focus on the self-help and personal development journeys, but you can also learn a lot if you're writing memoirs or have a story that's really transformative that you're trying to tell. So writing personal development or memoir is an opportunity to really share your wisdom, be inspirational, share transformative tips, tricks, insights, formulas, methodologies. So this is great for those who are coaches or spiritual entrepreneurs, anyone who's overcome adversity and wants to share the core lesson that they learned through those experiences. So when it comes to the self-help and personal development genre, a really compelling book is one that combines storytelling, research, and also actionable guidance for the reader. So let's take a look at how do we really take the lessons that we've learned in our lives and transform those into lessons on the page for the reader. So it starts with really understanding the genre. So I'll call it self-help or personal development. There's a lot of kind of subgenres to that, but overall we're really looking at how we're combining those life lessons into a story that's going to help our readers. So this genre is really about empowering readers by offering them advice, strategies, and motivation to improve their lives. So this can span topics around life in general. It can be specific to relationships. It could be specific to your business. It could be specific to career development or mindset development. It might also encompass the wellness space. So while the genre can be deeply personal, it's also important that our books take on a specific structure that helps our readers understand the value of us sharing our personal stories. So here are some key elements to consider as you are writing a personal development or self-help book. And the first is really to make sure you have a clear problem and solution. So this is creating a story arc that starts with where your readers are when they first pick up your book. So really thinking about what is the core problem. So why are they picking up your book? Because maybe they have a problem within their relationship. They're looking to help navigate communication in their relationship. Maybe they are looking to become a spiritual entrepreneur and want to understand what it looks like to build a coaching business. Whatever the topic is, you want to be very clear that you understand that problem and can identify that problem because you have been there as well. So this is what I mean by meeting the readers where they are, is that you are probably 10 or 100 steps along the journey ahead of where they are. So you want to come back to like, oh, what was that painful moment of like, this is when I knew it was time to make change. So that's where you want to meet your readers in the beginning of your book so that they can see themselves and understand that you know exactly what it is that they're experiencing and you are the right person to guide them on this path towards that solution. So that first step and the key element in this genre is to make sure you are very clear on what the problem is so that you're going to help provide a solution to throughout your book. So the second key element is to know what that solution is. So as you are identifying the problem, maybe breaking down the different aspects of that problem in your book, you're also then going to want to say, hey, I am also the expert in this area because I've experienced that. I have done this. I have moved through that. And because of the insight I gained, I created a methodology or a framework or something that's going to also help them get the solution they need. So this is no longer a problem in their life and they can move forward with their life. So that second key element of this personal development genre is to have that solution in mind. So tell them once you identified that problem, okay, now I'm going to help you find the solution through this method or this idea or these insights. So the third element in creating very powerful and impactful personal development books is really incorporating your own personal experience and research. So not only are you an expert or someone who has understood the journey the reader is going on, but maybe you also have some research or industry insights that can help support your ideas alongside your own experience. So you can share your own journey. You can share the lessons that you experienced. You can share the insights, and that really creates connection to your reader, and they understand who you are and why you are presenting these ideas to them. But then you can also showcase research and case studies that help them understand the broader context of maybe their industry or the world they're operating in, and you can help ground some of that experience, not just in your experience, but you can kind of connect the points between your methodology and your solution and back that up with some of these case studies and research, so that also helps kind of the reader understand logically, in addition to the emotion that you're conveying through your writing, and they're able to really ground that and apply it to their life. So the next key element in the personal development book space is to think about what actionable steps you can invite the reader to take. So it's one thing for them to kind of understand that you understand their problem, and as you're presenting the solution to that problem, how can you invite them to take the first step? So you can always do this by literal action steps at the end of chapters, or you can pose questions to them throughout your book so it gets them starting to think about, okay, well, how does this apply to my life, and how can I start taking a step today? When you're able to help readers understand their first step in their own transformation, that can be tremendously powerful and have such a great and positive impact on their lives. Not only are they reading a book, but they're actively changing and transforming their lives as they're reading your book. And that is the goal of the genre, is to really make sure that we are aiding people in their own transformation. So the sixth key element here is to really think about how you can engage through your writing style and make it relatable. So this is done by using stories to really illustrate your experience, but also incorporate some of that research in those facts. Because when we just throw facts at people, we tend to kind of tune out and not really understand like what's important to retain. So when you can create a story around both your facts and the lessons you've learned, that is what's going to connect us more to that story and be able to like sympathize, empathize, and understand the purpose of that story. So it can be really helpful to write in a very conversational tone or encouraging tone. You get to really decide what's best for your book, but just looking for those opportunities where you can engage the reader deeper through emotion and story, rather than just sharing insights or the next step for them to take in your methodology. Really think about how can you connect deeper with your reader. Okay, so now that we've talked a little bit about the genre, we've talked about some of the key elements to framing your book, let's talk about how we really turn some of those life lessons you're going to share throughout the book into teachings. So this starts with understanding what is your core message. So every successful self-help or personal development book has a very core message at its foundation. So what is that one thing that you want readers to take away from reading your book? There should be a message that is very clear, concise, and very relevant to your audience. This might also be known as the purpose for your book, for why does your book exist? This is what you want to make sure you are really clear on, so that as you're writing your book, each chapter then supports that theme and purpose of your book. So for example, if you've overcome burnout, your core message might be about reclaiming your energy and balancing your life through mindfulness and boundary setting. So by getting clear on that core message of your book, you're really setting the foundation for everything that you're going to share, and remind the reader of why they picked up your book in the first place. So the second aspect to consider here is really the structure of your book. You want to make sure the path you're taking your reader down is very clear. So we talked about starting with that problem, and maybe you're breaking down that problem into like 4 key areas, and then you are presenting 4 different solutions that ultimately solves their central pain point or the reason you're reading your book. So think about the structure of your book as a staircase. So what's the first thing they need to know? What is the second thing they need to know? What is the third thing that's going to take them to that top of that solution? Each chapter should build upon the one before it and also set you up for the next chapter that's coming. And within each of those chapters, you want to make sure that there's a key takeaway again. So there needs to be a clear purpose to your chapter and also a key takeaway that then connects back to that overall theme of your book. So the third piece here is to really use storytelling to illustrate your lessons. And I know I mentioned this earlier, but it is such a powerful way of connecting people to the emotion of the lessons you are sharing, versus just telling them what happened to you and maybe having a disconnect of why it's important for the reader to know that. So personal antidotes in self-help and personal development are where you bridge that relationship and that connection to your reader. So this is where I would encourage you to share some of your struggles and your failures and your victories as well. We want to hear all of it. Like, what is that journey you went on that led you to then write this book? And this doesn't mean that you need to go revisit all these old wounds or these very terrible parts of your life. If that's an element of your book, It's about being able to share from the scar and not the wound. So if you are revisiting challenging times in your life, just think about what is the lesson from that experience and focus on that as you are writing it. This is not about going back in time into tough places and having to relive that experience. This is ultimately about what was the key takeaway and how can you say to the reader, I see you if you were experiencing this thing, and here's how I got through it, and this was what I learned. So that's what we want to focus on. So the next thing to consider is really, what is your voice and tone and style of your book? How are you telling your stories, your anecdotes, your research in a way that is very engaging for the reader? So this category is not one size fits all. I know sometimes you hear self-help and we kind of think of like a cheerleader and like everything's bright and beautiful. Like that's not necessarily the case, especially if that's not your voice and your tone. So one of the ways I think the genre does really well is creating more of a conversation and dialogue. So it's kind of like you're sitting down with your best friend and you're talking about different parts of your life. That is where I feel like books can be really successful. But again, if that's not your writing style, don't force yourself to fit into something that doesn't work for you. The key here is to be really unapologetically yourself. So how would you sit down and talk to your friend? And how can you incorporate that tone and that cadence onto the page of your book? And while we might not all be cheerleaders, we do want a little bit of encouragement in our personal development books. We don't want to just write something that's like, oh, and I never figured out how to get the solution. So that's not really the best book. We want to make sure that you do have a solution or somewhere that you are taking the reader that leaves them better off than they were when they started reading your book. So while you don't need to be 110% energy at the cheerleader, we do want to provide encouragement as you are taking people on this journey and really making them feel empowered when they finish reading your book. You might also consider how your voice can be very accessible. So we want to make sure that we're using very clear and engaging language that speaks directly to your audience and doesn't confuse them. Because the last thing we want is a confused reader at the end of our book and they're going to wonder, why did I read this book in the first place? So try to make sure you are as authentic to yourself, but you are also being very clear in the points you are making. And that brings us to the end of your book. And this is where you want to make sure you have a very clear call to action or next step for your reader. So you might have presented some journaling prompts or questions for them, or things that they consider as they are transforming this area of their life. But the same with the end of your book, you might want to leave them with a question or something to think about, or maybe it is their next 5 steps they need to take now that they've read your book. So this is a great opportunity to really reinforce the key takeaways that you've presented throughout your book, to reiterate and underscore the theme of your book, and then encourage readers to take that next step. And so again, that could be in a reflective exercise or journal activity. It could be committing to their next step, or it could be resources for continued learning or what it is they need to do next to continue this momentum. So writing and self-help and personal development is really an opportunity to turn your personal experiences into transformative teachings. Ultimately, we're here to help guide our readers on a journey that will help positively influence and inspire them to transform their own lives. So by having a really clear message and structuring that message in an effective way and using storytelling and incorporating some research, you can provide very actionable steps